So we're live, and everything's coming in here. All right, cool. Now I see everybody here, and on my little screen in the background, my camera's not showing, but that is called life when you do live stuff. And so we're happy to be here. And today, Johnny Heller and Steve are with us. And what I like to do, because I know Johnny and Steve have known each other for about 6 decades. They grew up together. I think they were in an orphanage together. And so, Johnny, can you tell
With
us
our
a little bit
parents.
about our guest today and what's happening with this
Yeah.
show?
Steve Beaulieu is our guest today, the co-owner of Aethon Books, which primarily does LitRPG, sci-fi, fantasy, that kind of thing. He's also a sci-fi fantasy writer who goes by the name of Jaime Castle. We're delighted to have him with us, and we're going to take all your questions. We're going to, you know what I can't see, Don, I want to let you know is I can't see any audience, if there's any chat, if anybody's there, I
Oh,
have
okay.
no idea.
I'll
Yeah.
monitor that. And
So go. You get yourself on screen.
yeah,
Fix
yeah.
Well,
things.
Don lost his camera, and we immediately became 33% better looking.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, but people can hear me. I
fascinating.
think they can see me, and I will get the feed going here. So
Yeah. See if you can fix what's broken.
okay,
But this is always exciting because it's live and something always happens.
yep.
And what I like about it is you can't blame me because I've touched nothing. Yeah. I continue my Luddite ways. Well,
Well,
Steve, so great to have you with us.
Yeah, great to be here.
Tell us first. Let's see, how do we start? Let's start with the birth of and continuation of Aethon Books. Where did it come from? How'd you guys start it? Who you working with? Tell us.
I think it's such a loaded question because I can go back, 40 years, or I can go back 6 years, and
Can you go back to lunchtime yesterday?
I can go back to lunch. Man, I don't even remember what I had for lunch yesterday. So, Aethon was so I was a pastor for 14 years. I was a musician. I was a touring metal musician and singer. Kind of did the Ozfest circuit and had a pretty decent career in music.
You do Christian rock?
No, just
No.
no, just metal.
Mhm.
Sort of, we described ourselves as sort of Christians in the metal scene, but we were not doing Christian music. And so and that said, like when you're a Christian and you're writing lyrics, like things happen, things come into that just you write music out of your heart, and whatever's there comes out. Cowboy who's not a Christian, how do you write that? So, but we started about 5 or 6 years ago, 2018. I had been pastoring. There was sort of a big political bullcrap situation at the church that I was pastoring in for about 8 years, and all the young guys lost their jobs in a day. I don't need to go into any detail there, but I was one of the young guys. I was 34 years old, and Rhett and I had been writing books together for about 1.5 years, 2 years before that happened. And so my wife and I started a house church. We had a really great thing going for about 10 weeks. And some of you might understand this, some of you just might not, but I heard God say, this isn't what I wanted you to do. So Saturday night, I went, well, what the crap do you want me to do? And
To the Lord, you said that.
I actually said fuck, but I'm not allowed to say that on this show. So, he can handle our
Yeah, I'd imagine.
I was pissed. I didn't know what to do. I had no idea. I just went from 14 years of doing a thing to really believing strongly in my heart this was a word from God that I was not supposed to continue doing this. So I called Rhett the next day and I said, hey, I don't have a job and I don't know what to do. And I really don't want to be a greeter at Walmart. Not that there's anything wrong with being a greeter at Walmart greeters, but I didn't want to do that. And so he was a full-time architect at the time. And he said, I'll quit my job and we'll start the publishing company. We had been talking about starting a publishing company for a while. We'd had some really good success in releasing our own books. Rhett had Titanborn, Children of Titan with Random House, and he bought his rights back and sold more copies of it in one day than they did in the 4 years that they had it.
Oh, wow.
And so then we had a fantasy series that did very well, Buried Goddess Saga. And so we had said, if we could do this for ourselves, perhaps we could do it for others, which I think is the only attitude to have as a publisher. There's a whole lot of publishers that start companies because they can't sell their own books and they think of it as another revenue income stream. And maybe I could sell other people's books. That doesn't work. If you can't sell your own books, you're not selling anyone else's books. So he went into his boss's office that day and said, hey, I'd like to put in my 2 weeks notice. And his boss said, man, I've just been waiting for you to tell me that you're going to go full time into this writing thing. Don't worry about the 2 weeks. You have my blessing. Go for it.
Wow.
So this was probably August or September of 2018. We had our first book launch in November, which was Haley Stone's Make Me No Grave. Let me just give you some advice. If Weird Westerns is your first thing, good luck. But we had such tremendous success with Haley Stone's Make Me No Grave. Honestly, I think until Rhett and I released Dead Acre and Cold as Hell, I think it was the best-selling Weird Western of all time.
Wow.
It was just, that's not hard to do. There's not a lot of Weird Westerns out there and they don't sell well, but we had such success with that. And then very quickly caught the eye of guys like Paul Anthony Jones, who is now deceased. He did The Path of Ascension. I'm sorry, not The Path of Ascension, The Path Between Worlds with us. And then Joshua Gayu came to us with his Commune series, and he had a lot of success on audio, but could not do the ebook thing. And so we got a lot of sort of big opportunities very early on. And by March of 2019, we were doing what we thought was phenomenally successful. We had no idea what that really looked like until COVID. Not to make light of COVID, I was hospitalized. I was out for an entire month during COVID, but without COVID, Aethon would never have exploded the way that we did, because everyone was just at home reading and listening to books, and book sales were through the roof.
Yeah.
So 2020 and 2021 were catalyst years for us. And we started the whole thing with nothing. I mean, we had a $4,000 Kickstarter in October of 2018, and we went from a $4,000 Kickstarter to a company worth tens of millions of dollars in 5 years.
Wow. That is wonderful.
Explosive. And, a lot of it is just that, publishers, the trad pub industry is dying, whether we want to sort of admit it or not.
Trad pub, traditional publisher.
Traditional publishing. Okay. I have nothing against trad pub. As a matter of fact, whatever. But the market is leaning shelf space. 250,000 words long don't finish. So the readers are here for science fiction, fantasy readers. I'll make that clear, right? Because I can't attest to romance and thrillers and all of that, but man, the 85% of that entire market is on Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah,
where everyone is. So that's sort of the nutshell of how we started.
So you do LitRPG. So pretend somebody's new to this business, explain to them what that is.
LitRPG is the weirdest fantasy that you'll ever read. Mm-hmm. But in some ways, I really believe that the core buyers of LitRPG just think it's fantasy. What it is fantasy with Dungeons and Dragons or video game style stats, updates, systems that are included in the world so that the character actually interacts with a system the same way you would if you were on a video game or the dungeon master in a tabletop D&D game. And so there's various versions of LitRPG. You've got crunchy versions, which are very heavy on stats, and then you've got light versions that are not. And then sort of the overarching label for that genre is actually just progression fantasy. Progression fantasy is exactly what it sounds like. The characters progress in some way through the story. Now, those of us who are traditional writers would go, that's any good story. But this focuses heavily on the progression. Your character gains levels, your items gain levels, whatever it looks like, whatever that progression system looks like, that becomes progression fantasy, LitRPG, game lit. There's a variety of words that are used.
Is it generally involving a hero's quest, if you will?
Yeah, the LitRPG community is very interesting in that they don't forgive weakness in characters. I write traditionally very often, and what that means for me is that I beat the living snot out of my characters. They get run down to the point of almost no return to have that comeback.
Yeah.
And in the genres that we're talking about, they really don't want that. They want an overpowered, oftentimes, not always, but they want an overpowered, never makes bad decisions, metagames the system type of character.
Yeah.
And they'll go, why, if you make a bad decision, like, well, why did you do that? And the answer can't be because in real life we made bad decisions. It's, if I were playing a video game, I would know how to do this. Why didn't you?
Do you have to, let me phrase this right. Do you write some of your stuff to the potential listener's expectations, or do you write it the way you want it to be?
So LitRPG tends to be a right to market world. Science fiction tends to be a right to market world. There's certain tropes that, and actually, I'll just be honest, romance does, thrillers do. If you're making money in writing books, you write to market. The books that sell the best are the ones that what people want to read. And so you write your story to meet those needs. You get those outliers, those, we get about 1,000 submissions a week. And oftentimes those submissions are trying to outline why their story is unique or sort of important. And if I'm being honest, that's the quickest way to get me to say I'm not signing it. Because readers typically want the same story with a new paint job or a facelift.
Right, yeah.
Right.
We could watch movies and TV shows and figure out that that's the truth. I mean,
Yeah. We keep buying Liam Neeson movies, so we must.
Right.
Precisely. And that's not to talk down about readers or anything like that. I mean, if I'm a reader, I kind of want the familiar. I wish somebody would just write another Dresden series, but it's.
Well, you brought up something earlier that I think you should jump on right away. You should have a series where Walmart greeters and Costco greeters are battling.
It would work in LitRPG. Put them in a fantasy world and give them swords.
Yeah.
It's in. You're in.
Or products. They use whoever has the sharpest products in the store will vanquish the other greeters.
The best stock boy will win.
Yeah. The beautiful thing about LitRPG is that it's in its infancy. It's massive. I can't even explain to you how massive this genre is. If I could reveal numbers, you would be absolutely blown away. Of everything we do, I go out into public and I'm at 7-Eleven wearing an Aethon Books hat, and somebody goes, "You guys publish Defiance of the Fall, right?" Or He Who Fights with Monsters, or whatever it is. From a silly little bird logo without my name on it, they recognize these genres.
Wow.
I think it's so cool. I think because having done them now, they are so much fun. So many characters, and when you think your character can't take any more, they give him more. It's like it's like a movie that just simply won't end. It just keeps going on, and when you get to the end, it always seems like this is book one, and so you don't know how many there are going to be.
Yeah. Well, there's the interesting thing with LitRPG. This isn't true of everyone, but like a lot of the big, huge projects are web serials before they become anything on Amazon, and so they're being released for free on websites like Royal Road or Wattpad or whatever. And so these guys have 10 million words. And our job is to go, okay, well, we can't give you 55 hours. So here's 24 hours. And in 3 months, you're going to have the next 24 hours. It's a weird genre.
Okay. Go ahead, Don.
No, finish your shot. Your
it's so incredible to me because when I started in this business back in the early 1800s, there are only, there are thrillers and there are histories and and there wasn't a lot of other stuff. Since then, the genres and the things, because creative arts are so creative, people do everything, and now you have this the lit RPG, the sci-fi, the fantasy is gigantic,
Yeah.
and the people who follow them really follow them. I mean,
Yeah.
these are it is that, like, when I was a kid, I never played Dungeon and I just didn't have friends who knew it. I'd love to try it. I don't know how it works, but but now it seems like the world is taken over by people who play Dungeon and Dragons. You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was a 14-year-old that was made fun of for playing D&D, and then here we are. I'm 40, and D&D is acceptable in pop culture in every form.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And no one thinks it's weird anymore. But man, you've watched Stranger Things, right?
Yeah.
Those were the nerdiest, dorkiest kids ever playing D&D, and now they're running the world. I mean,
I always thought all the alleged nerds way back when are now, now they're the people who can really mess up your life with their computer.
for sure.
So
Absolutely.
you've got
And
to
you just-
stop laughing at people like Steve when he's 14. That's all I'm telling you. In spite
I'm
of
like,
his
I play
good
guitar too. Does that count for anything?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And I see you play drums as well in the background, so we can
That's
talk
right.
about that later. So
Okay.
here's what I want to know about. So I am a dumb old 63-year-old, and I'm kind of going, all right, I don't know anything about this, but I want to narrate, and I want to get involved in this. Where do I start? What would you recommend to me, knowing nothing about it? Because I want to break in, and I want to become your future Johnny Heller, as he is pulled along with this as well. But where do I start? How do I get started?
Well, I see in the comments somebody mentioned Heath Miller and Andrea Parsnow and Pavi Prosco and Travis Baldry and all these massive names. The hardest part about science fiction and fantasy is that, actually, I'll back up and just say this. The hardest part about audiobooks is that audiobook listeners, which I am one of, I listen to about 200 books a year. I am not listening to books for the author. Oftentimes, I'm not even listening to books for the story. I'm listening to books because Luke Daniels just came out with a new audiobook.
Yeah.
I don't care who the author is. I'm following the narrator. And so narrators at this point have the job of creating their brand the same way sort of authors have had to do for so many years. And that might have always been true of narrators. I'm not trying to say this is a brand new thing. But when we started this company in 2018, Rhett made fun of me. Again, a lot of people make fun of me for wanting to do audiobooks because audiobooks weren't there yet.
Okay.
Audiobooks really hit and blew up on Audible. I would say 2019, 2020, it became this unbelievable thing. And we went from traditional publishers owning the audiobook rights and maybe getting around to do audio 10 years later to, honestly, Rhett is responsible for synchronous launching of audiobooks across every publisher that does audiobooks. We've worked with Recorded Books, Podium, Tanner, everybody. Nobody did sync launches until Rhett said, we have to do it sync launched. And they went, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And we said, watch it work. And it's now a standard thing in the industry that if it's not sync launched, authors get upset.
Yeah.
So blame Rhett for that. I could blame Rhett for a million things.
But that means, but I'm going to cut you off here. So that means if that's the case, and they've got a book coming out, then they want us to be narrating it in near real time. I mean, as fast as humanly possible, so that we make that deadline. And that means you need more AI people you need more AI, right, in order to get it done, or are you actually looking for people?
Well, I take it that's one of the stupid questions that you're going to ask today.
No, I'll wait. I haven't got to the stupid ones yet.
I think
Hold on.
You can put that title on everything Don says. Pretty much. Yeah.
Aethon has made a very, very hard stance against AI. I was a part of an anti-AI initiative. It was an upper echelon to be right before Vegas when I was going to see all of them, and they almost did Vegas because they were so worried about the backlash that they were going to get, and they decided to come, and I sat down with them. I said, I'll abbreviate thing. I said, man, you really effed me in the butt on this one because I have been fighting on Amazon's side publicly for the last at least year about how you were handling AI, and then everything flipped immediately. It's still to be seen what happens with virtual voice. I mean, there's 35,000, 40,000 titles that are not selling. Nobody wants this crap. And that's evident in sales. That's evident in ratings. And it's still in beta. They invited us to the beta a couple months ago, and I sent back the most scathing email ever that I got a computerized response to. But no, the answer to me is not AI. However, I'll say this. I've never said this publicly, but like the stance that we've taken on AI has to come with the caveat that every smart person on earth should be saying right now, we're not going to use AI until it becomes impossible not to. We want to fight that as long as humanly possible. But science fiction has been warning everybody about AI since 1956, right? Like this is not new.
Are you hearing what I'm hearing where he gets all garbled and then drops out completely?
No, I can't.
Maybe it's my machine. Maybe
Okay.
it's my internet.
Okay.
Which is
Wait.
spotty up there.
We cut it out. We hear you guys.
You forgot to mute. And so, no, I mean, things like I had a conversation with a narrator recently who will not be named. He was not Voldemort, but he mentioned what's the name of that starts with a P, the proofing software.
Oh, Positron.
Positron. He mentioned Positron, and I had the same attitude. I'm like, authors have AI tools that we use, things like Grammarly, things like Writing Aid, things that help us to edit our books before a real editor gets them, so that the editor does not have as hard a job with the simple things. Positron has its place, but like especially in LitRPG, it can't pick up when Johnny uses the wrong voice for a character. And you're talking about a genre that the entire market will 1-star a book because Johnny screwed up one line. So we're not there. And so we use human proofers, we use human editors, we use human narrators. We will, always have that attitude until the day comes when guys like Johnny are not doing the job anymore. And we have to go, well, what's available? And we go, well, Ray Porter sold his voice. I guess we'll use Ray Porter. And
you can't get Heller, get Porter. I'll let
right?
you said that.
But the danger there was Ray's a friend of mine, and I go, who cares if I get Ray Porter now? If I could just click a button and have Ray Porter.
Yes, yeah.
So what's the narrator to do if they want to get involved with this with you guys? As far as I don't know anything about it. Yeah. Or I'm already a narrator, but I need to, it sounds like I have to do two things. One, I need to get on your radar. And then two, I need to develop my own following, because you're saying people listen. Essentially, narrators are becoming their own brand, and they need to establish so that when a new book comes out, people will know that you have a new book. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I did not answer the actual question because I got off on a violent rage against AI.
That's right. Carry on.
Yeah, it's tough. We have there's a lot of names that you'll find on the Aethon roster that we believe that we helped make, and I say that with humility. And I think that those narrators would say that it's true. They went from having no following to all of a sudden they're on one of the biggest books in the world. Rhett and I really do enjoy that opportunity. However, that said, because audio is so big in LitRPG and science fiction, our authors come to us, and oftentimes it's in their contracts that we have to get a certain narrator or a narrator of that same echelon, if that's the right word to use.
So explain. I want to drill down on that. So if I do well, you're saying that the audience and you guys are going to want me to do a series of them rather than just do one of them because your audience is expecting that, correct?
Yeah, we'll never ever hire a narrator for a project without the intention of them doing the entire series. That is a death wish. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, Johnny, you took over. Was that you that took over?
No, there was book one, the Redemption's Cost.
No, you did Redemption's Cost for us, and that's if that doesn't do well, then we're going to close Aethon forever.
Right, I understand.
a huge moment in audiobooks because Travis Baldree was doing a book series called Jake's Magical Market, and Travis is one of the premier LitRPG narrators alive. And historically,
he's the Ray Porter of Travis Baldree's. Yeah,
man, you change a narrator in the middle of a series, and it's a death wish for the series. I think that listeners are finally understanding that narrators get booked quickly and easily once they become big. And it becomes impossible to keep up the schedules that LitRPG requires. And either you get the book or you get the book a year later with the narrator that, you understand where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
That said, we do everything in our power to not change narrators. We've only done it a couple times and had some good reasons. But if somebody wants to get on our radar, listen, you can email us. I get 20 emails a week at least from narrators that are giving out their portfolios and stuff like that. My advice to you is stop giving me your websites. I don't care. I don't care about your website. Show me your Audible platform. That's all that matters. If
can you say again, show me your Audible what? I missed it.
Your Audible platform. Give me a link to your Audible credits. That is what I'm going to look at. And if I go to your website, I'm saying this with all the love I can, but you're asking a question. I want to give an answer. I'm not actually interested in what you sound like immediately. That's not what a publisher is looking for. A publisher is looking for what can you bring to this book in terms of audience. Then we listen to you and we go, this fits the book, or this fits the series, or you're good at what you do. My initial thought is, if you're doing this for a job, I know that you're good. Otherwise, you're not going to have any jobs. So, show me your Audible platform,
right,
your page, and then we'll go, okay, so you've done 20 books in science fiction fantasy. That's important to me. You don't have to be Travis Baldree. You just have to have some experience in a genre that can be really weird. Otherwise, I'm answering questions all day long about how do I read this stat list? How do I do that? And if you want to get involved in LitRPG, listen to some LitRPGs because they're freaking weird. And
we know what you just said. Questions. If you want to get involved in what you're doing, listen to some of it. And it always amazes me. People say, I know Don's into sound, and you're into music, and I say, hey, I'm gonna play metal, but I've never played it or even listened to it. Right. It just seems ludicrous. It happens all the time in our business. I want to do what Don. I'm going to do what you do. Steve, I want to do what you do. But not really. All we're really saying is we want what we see you have.
Right.
We have no idea what it takes to be there. And I just bothers me so much. The very idea of I want to do LitRPG, I want to do whatever thing. And people say to me all the time they want to do audiobooks, and they've never listened to them.
Right.
I'm like, well, I don't understand.
Right. We there was a time when I was pastoring that a woman came up to me with her child and asked me if I would pray for them that they would have the anointing that I have to do what I do. And that was a very weird moment for me, because I said, I will absolutely pray for your kid, but I won't pray for that, because it took me my whole life to get past the stage fright, to get past the discomfort, to get past all the weirdness that is pastoring, that is lead singing, that is narrating books. Some of that comes with the effort and the time. And if you just get it handed to you in any capacity, you're never going to really be as good as you could be in that area. Getting good at something is painful. Use guitar as an example. God, my fingers bled for years.
Right.
I didn't just pick up a guitar and know how to play. And artists have this problem all the time. I have 12 artists on staff, and we work with a whole bunch of artists. And they hate when people say, I wish I had your talent.
Right.
They hate it because it wasn't just talent. Now, I do believe there's an innate talent that we have to do the things that we do, but we still sucked when we started.
Yeah.
You still have to learn the craft. And so narrators, if you want to, first of all, listen to the genres that you want to do. people don't want different. They want the same with a face job. Or a facelift. We already said that. Listen to them, and it's hard to say do a couple of them, because especially in LitRPG, nobody wants a brand new narrator. The authors don't. Audio is so expensive, and if I'm rambling, you shut me up, but I could talk forever. Audio is so expensive that we know if we miss the mark, we just lost $20,000 on a series.
Oh, wow.
You know,
That's heavy.
It is, because we just committed to doing 6 books, 8 books, whatever that looks. And some of them are 24 hours long, and you know what your PFH is. You know what all these guys' PFH is. Another thing that I will say while we're talking about PFH, and this might be frowned upon in the narrator world, but like, don't come in at the same price. Like the SAG-AFTRA minimum, I get that that's a thing. But if I can get Johnny Heller for the same price that I can get somebody that never did a book before, guess who I'm going with?
What are these? What is it? You hitting these buttons that are balloons and things?
No, I'm not sure. The balloons are probably because people can they can say I like what you're saying, and it's
so that's our audience doing that.
Yes.
Because Steve, do you see it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
I saw balloons go up in front of me.
And you and also let me put a plug in here. We're now monetized. It's now available. The stream's coming on here today, so we're getting intermittent errors that are coming in, and this is what's going to happen for anybody who can hear me, in case we were in a period here. We will redo this again and have Steve back. If we figure out afterward, I'll get to watch the whole stream and go, hey, there was something wrong. We can't control every aspect of this. On my screens, I do see YouTube is intermittently yapping at me, and sometimes I can fix it in real time. Sometimes I can't, because sometimes it's just not us. I've got this absolutely killer connection.
Well, Steve, you'll come back, won't you?
Oh, for sure.
Excellent.
Yep. So we'll keep
I heard
going.
you say no, but
we'll keep
ignoring
going
you.
live here, and hopefully, I mean, we have people chatting, so I know most people are hearing it. We do have some things that aren't working, and then it comes back. Okay. So
interesting.
So what I want to know is this, though. Since no one wants a new narrator, then in order to break in, I'm gonna have to work my butt off and do my homework like everything else. The guitar thing's crazy, but people don't realize this. If you're gonna play guitar, you end up with your fingers bleeding for a period of time until you have put in enough to build calluses.
Yeah.
And I always have told people, I played guitar in high school and I got calluses, and I will never again play guitar, because I will not sit there and do it again I know what it takes to get them one time. I've done it in high school. I ain't doing it. So I'll never play guitar again. Well, that's fine. And how do we break in then, since no one wants a new narrator? Can you summarize it again for us, just to make sure we really understand?
I mean, ACX gave us a phenomenal platform, which is why virtual voice was so offensive to everybody on the planet, because Amazon ignored the fact that they had a company called ACX in the first place, and they went, here's this thing. But narrators, you have this opportunity to audition for books, and most people doing audiobooks can't afford the per finished hour rate that exists. And I know, again, I'm a part of the narrator community, so I understand that sometimes talking royalty shares is a bit of a no-no these days. But like, if you're just starting, royalty share is the way to go. Don't expect to make money. Listen, if somebody is on ACX putting their project on ACX, chances are they don't know how to sell a book to save their life. And so you're not there to make money. You're there to get the experience. It's like when I was a musician, it took me 1 million free shows in dive bars. I played stages at laundromats where they took dryers and washers off the stage. It took that to play main stage at Ozfest. Right. I had to go through it all. And we live in a world where nobody wants to commit time. 2020 was such an amazing experience for Aethon Books, but it also created about I don't know, a million narrators and a million authors that didn't
Yeah.
know what to do with their time. So they thought, I've got this garbage microphone at my house. I'll do this. And some of those,
COVID, the golden years of audiobooks.
yeah, right. Some of those careers, man, they took off. I've
Yeah.
got several narrators that I work with regularly who just started during 2020.
Yeah.
And they got me at the right time. They had the right voice. I had the right project. One of our biggest series, which I'm going to not name because I actually don't want to name the narrator in this context. But one of our biggest series, the narrator was an absolute nobody who emailed us. And I just happened to have a project that the author didn't care who the narrator was. All the big narrators in the genre were just booked solid forever. And Rhett and I went, this guy is offering to do this at 150 PFH. And he sounds phenomenal. Like, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
And the series is massive. The guy has a career now because that series took off.
Well,
and
that's
so
great.
I'm not telling you that it's impossible, but it's becoming less and less possible as time goes on.
Well, here's a let's bring up here John Stark. Can you bring that up?
Sure.
Let me read what it says exactly. What? It's too soft. What do you say? What's it say, Don?
What do you say to a new voice actor with 0 productions on his audio CV?
Public
Hello,
domain. Go read a public domain book. Pull Moby Dick out, or whatever is public domain, and read it and put it on Audible. You could do that.
Yeah, you can put your own stuff out. Anybody who doesn't have anything, I mean, everybody starts with nothing. Before I did my first audiobook, I had no audiobooks, and that's
Right.
and now I've got over 1,000. It's just the nature of the beast. So the way to get now, and I'll tell you just a couple bits of advice. You need to do things. You need to get some training if you haven't done it. So don't just wander in blindly, because there's so many mistakes that you don't need to make. And
Right.
a good coach can help you, whether it's performance or business. But you do need to have something out there so that people like Steve can hear how you handle an audiobook. How can he judge? I mean, I remember I did some theater both in Chicago and in New York and in LA, some off Broadway and stuff. Wrote some plays, and the auditions I held, I found some actors were brilliant at audition monologues.
Right.
And you cast them, and then you found out they were crap in the role.
Right.
Because their skill was auditioning. So you need to become skilled in audiobooks, and then as Steve says, go ahead and do. There's plenty of things in the public domain. If you do things on ACX, just be a little wary about.
But that's what we see, and so we have to make good business. Decisions, right? I want to be the guy that's artist all the time, and I go, you have a phenomenal voice and you would fit this thing. But then I got Rhett, whose business shark mentality goes, don't invest in this. Like, this is not the route that we need to go for a project that could be massive if we have the right narrator on it. And so there's this really awful business artist conundrum that I'm constantly facing. And it just sort of is what it is. But yeah, get that good experience. And, if your profile is all, if your website is all portfolio stuff for like car commercials, unfortunately, it doesn't really tell me anything. It just tells me that you could maybe sell a Honda. But
Right.
if I don't know how your character interactions are and your inflections on actual prose, it's very difficult to know if you're going to be tolerable for 24 hours or 15 hours or 6 hours or whatever it ends up being.
If you found I had a series of, say, fantasy, but I don't have LitRPG, or I mean a related genre, would that help me get started if you need?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times we'll start new narrators or newer narrators or narrators that are new to the genres. We'll start them in science fiction. Science fiction is not a big selling genre on Audible.
Okay.
It used to be, and I'll leave out the reasons why. It's just awful why it became a problem on Audible. But we'll start out with something like that so we can sort of see how the listeners respond to you as a narrator. Audible gives us a phenomenal like performance rating, and so even if the book is rated poorly, if your performance rating is good, that tells me it wasn't your fault.
Maybe.
LitRPG and fantasy are hand in hand. So
if you guys out there are also doing this, be aware that when you get your Audible reviews, it's not much different than a Yelp review. The people doing it are not dramaturgs and stuff. And I've had books that I know are really good where I get 1 star because they don't like the book. So they just slam the performer as well. And people tend to do that. So while I know that many publishers want you to have 3 stars plus overall, you can get that. But most people who write things, who write actual reviews of your work on Audible, either really loved it or really hated it.
yeah.
It's always the extreme, just never like, this is nice. No one ever says that.
And a lot of times people do the one rating, the just the overall, and they ignore the other two. I saw a review last week, a 1-star review because the narrator mispronounced a town 1 time in the whole book. Yeah. And this person grew up near that town, and he was like, what an idiot. He couldn't Google that. And you're like, it looks like that's what it looks like. That would be like me getting mad because Nick Padell, one of the gods of LitRPG, mispronounced my last name. I write as Jaime Castle, and every now and then I throw in a character with my real name. He mispronounced it, and I didn't get upset. That's what it looks like. Like, it looks like Beaulieu. So, I'm not going to blame you for that. So, anyway.
Yeah, it's people get touchy about a lot. It just, it just depends. I mean, I don't want to bring up a sad story about one of my friends, but a mispronunciation of Houston Street in New York is going to offend more people than a mispronunciation of Smith Street in Boise or smaller. You know what I mean?
Listen, New York is wrong. It's Houston. It's Houston. It always will be Houston. I have a street here that's Camp Bowie, spelled like David Bowie, named after the guy who invented the Bowie knife.
Bowie knife, yeah.
Right?
Jim Bowie knife.
It's not Bowie. It's right, but it is.
Yeah, I know. And
so you always know when somebody's from out of town because they call it Camp Bowie, and you're like, no, it's Camp Bowie.
Well, I will say that when you get that kind of stuff, if there's regional things, you can also look. You Google like Michigan mispronunciations or something, because there's always a newspaper that has just a bunch of things that let you know people are not from Michigan or any state, and it's all the same. You can find out how to say. If it's a real place, my advice is Google to get it right, because why make the mistake when you don't have to? That's the whole point of Google. That was the whole point of the internet.
LitRPG in general, authors are way too busy to give you a pronunciation guide.
Yeah.
They are keeping up a ridiculously tight schedule of having to write a certain number of words a day. And it's usually somewhere between 2,000 and 10,000 words a day to maintain the speed that it takes to actually be successful in this industry. And so we get narrators requesting pronunciation guides all the time. And I will ask the narrator, or I will ask the author, but a lot of times what I do with the narrator is say, could you just tell me what you need pronounced? Because most authors don't have time to create a comprehensive pronunciation guide, and most authors actually don't care how you pronounce anything in their books.
Oh yeah, you'll be amazed by how many authors, even in nonfiction, where you think they know the people and the story and the places. And I contact them; they have no idea. They found the book they found the name in their research,
right?
And they don't have to say it,
right?
They just have to write it in there, so they don't always know either.
We advise our authors don't use names that are unintelligible.
Yeah,
I know it's fantasy, but we don't need apostrophes in every freaking name. Like,
yeah.
Let's try to keep it as simple as possible, because these are going to be read on audio, and we try to do that. But there's still going to be crazy stuff that comes through in fantasy and science fiction. There always is.
And I also think authors sometimes don't understand that if I were reading the actual physical copies, ebook or hard copies, I then get to pronounce it however I want in my head, and it doesn't
Right.
change the story if
Right.
I call it, Mr. Beller instead of Mr. Heller.
Right.
That's
As long as you consistently mispronounce it, that's the key.
That's well, I do, and I do.
R.C. Bray did something. Nicholas Sansbury Smith is one of my best friends, and he wrote the Helldivers series. R.C. Bray did something intentionally that I thought was so fun and brilliant. Helldivers takes place hundreds of years after the Earth has been nuked, and the characters call places entirely wrong names. Like Florida is Florida, Australia is Australia, and Bray came up with that himself. And so there's a place for now. R.C. Bray can do no wrong. The following R.C. Bray has is ungodly, which, by the way, I'll take that as an opportunity to say, narrators, if you're not trying to establish some sort of social media platform, look at Luke Daniels, look at R.C. Bray, look at these guys that built. Look at Jeffrey Kafer, these guys that built a world around themselves because actually they care about you more than they do the author. If you go to R.C. Bray's 50 Shades of Bray Facebook, the people there think all of these are R.C. Bray's books. They don't distinguish between a book that Nicholas Sansbury Smith wrote and Jeremy Robinson wrote. They're all R.C. Bray books. And so it's an interesting little thing that narrators now have to contend with. They're your books, and they're not really.
Do you think that'll carry over to other genres too? I mean, so in other words, we're in the age now where narrators are becoming less interchangeable over time. Is that correct? They need their own
think
brand.
I think that already exists. You've got your Scott Bricks of the thrillers. I guess thrillers, nonfiction, whatever. For Scott Brick, he's sort of a big name there. And then you've got your romantic narrators that are just like massive. We actually just had a really weird, one of the biggest names in romance just got canned on TikTok pretty badly. It ended very poorly all around, but like that's pretty that's the exact opposite that we want in the RPG. We want, like, you've got Jeff Hayes and Sound Booth Theater doing the most over-the-top, exaggerative, and beautiful audiobooks, and that's what the listeners are drawn to. I think Johnny brought it up earlier, getting a coach. Johnny coaches Peter Berg. Coaches.
Yep.
There's several coaches out there doing phenomenal work. Joe Hempel coaches. Like, there's so many names out there that you can go, these guys are great at what they do. Let me hear why they're so good.
And that's what you would recommend before I'm going to contact you, because if otherwise I'm ignorant.
A little bit. I mean, I've heard some. I don't want to keep backtracking over things that I say, but I've heard, like, there's some narrators out there that are just naturally great at what they do, and maybe you don't need coaching. I remember when I first started writing books, I told people I was doing my own book covers, and their immediate response was, "Don't do your own book covers." And then I showed them the book cover, and they go, "Oh, you should be doing your own book covers." Right? It's like it's not a one size fits all. A lot of them fit like OJ's glove.
It's hard to know or to accept what you people always tell you what you can't do. I mean, you need to find out for yourself by just doing, I mean, you don't want to make 1,000 mistakes. That's why some coaching, some help would be important. But, every time someone says you can't, I just think it's a problem. Like, there are things you literally can't. I cannot. I'll never dunk a basketball, a regulation. I won't be able to do it. I just can't jump that high, and I'm too little. But the other things I can do, unless I'm convinced or someone tells me I can't.
And you don't know what you don't know, right?
Huh?
That you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
That's important to remember, is like, you might think you've got this thing down, but like, I've been playing guitar for 30 years, and there's things that I would love to do, but I need to take the time to practice doing those things. And I've made a decision in my own life. It's not worth it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Another couple of years, you'll get that G chord down.
Right.
So, but that does mean though that if I'm not sure, I then need to be seeking out the right coaches. And if I already, if I'm already in it, then I can try new things. But chances are I need a third point of view.
Yeah.
Is that close?
And be willing to fail. Like, you got to be ready to fail. You got to be ready to hear Johnny say, slow the fuck down, or whatever his catchphrases are. You have to be willing to hear those things. And we live in a world that hates critique. But man, without critique, I wouldn't be the writer I am today. Without critique, I would not be the husband I am today. If you can't take critique, if you have thin skin, this is definitely not the industry for you, because reviews can hurt.
So should they listen to every review?
No, because opinions are buttholes. Everyone's got them. Some stink worse than others. And a good thing to do is, if you're a narrator, go look at the reviewer profile. If all they do is trash books, ignore them.
Yeah.
But if they gave great ratings to some books that you really respect, and they gave some written reviews as to why they enjoyed that book, like maybe listen to that, and see what kind of advice you could get from a listener. But social media will do that for you as well.
Right.
Invite critique.
And be willing to accept a critique that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, if everybody says that you're too fast, maybe you need to slow down.
Right.
If everybody says you're way too slow, maybe you need, and I've never said this is speed up a little bit, but you can listen when the opinions seem to be similar. There may be some validity to it.
Right.
If one person says, I don't like the sound of his voice, what are you going to do?
The Bible says there's wisdom in a multitude of counsel. And whether you're a Christian or not, that is something you should be living by. Listen, if you get a critique, your next step is to go to some people that you trust and say, I want a real answer here. Do you agree with this? And a lot of times, maybe the person doesn't agree, but they'll go, no, but I understand what that person's thinking.
Right.
And then, you could take that for what it's worth as well. I don't know.
The thing is, when you're doing these kinds of books that we're talking about, because of the length of the book, you've really got to, here's some advice I'll give for the books I've done. You've really, really got to pay attention to your characters. Make sure you know, because they do reappear. So whoever Bobby was in chapter 3 has got to be the same Bobby in chapter 18.
And in book 6, when he finally comes back.
So keep your files.
And speed is something that's important too. The slower you read, the more money this book makes.
The more money the book makes?
Absolutely. If you speed through a book that should be 24 hours long and you do it in 19 hours, there's people out there that go 19 hours is not worth the credit. And,
wow. Well, I agree with the concept, because I've always said, it's not a race. You don't want to finish the book. Let the action take the time it takes.
And you can always speed up an audiobook. You cannot slow down an audiobook. I could hit 2 speed. Well, I guess you can slow it down a little bit, but you could speed it up a lot more than you can slow it down.
Yeah.
That's a better way of saying that.
Right.
I listen to some books on 2x speed, and there's a lot of audiophile folks that'll be like, no, but you're not letting the performance come through. The actor, I don't have time for that. If I want to listen to his performance, I'll slow it down, but I want to listen to this book as quickly as I can so I can get to the next book. And that's the attitude of most listeners, just so you know. It sucks.
I find that fascinating. I understand it. I realize it exists, but it's like going to a Broadway show and saying, hurry up.
But you know what? How much did you pay? This is the kicker too. How much did you pay for those tickets to that Broadway show?
Well, we're
hundreds,
organizations.
Hundreds for 2 hours of your life.
Yeah.
And we got people bitching about spending $14.99 on a 24-hour long audiobook.
Well, I think what we have to realize, what our fathers have always said, people are dicks. So, I just think there's some wisdom there. People, and it's just, people will bitch. I've seen people get upset that they got charged 13 cents more than they needed to be. I'm like, and I understand, I guess. It's all we have to please everything we do in the audiobook world, and I suppose in the publishing world, has to be in the interest of our listener and our reader. We have to engage our listener, and if our listener wants what they want, if they want to speed us up, then God bless them. They can speed us up, but that doesn't mean that we should speed up our performance.
I agree. I had a woman complain once because I advertised a book of mine on sale for 99 cents, and I advertised it for less than $1. And when she bought it, it was $1.05 because of tax. And she got mad that it was not under $1. I literally PayPal'd her 6 cents.
Yeah. Okay, so I got to do 2 things here logistically. So number 1, you've been awesome. We're coming to a close here. We got another 5 minutes or so. We may even close up early. But the YouTube stream, right now we have an excellent connection. Everything's running on all cylinders. Intermittently in this, we've had some dropouts. I've got a fiber connection that's a couple gigs. I've got enough bandwidth to choke a horse. But we've had some dropouts today, and so I'm getting comments in the feed. The people are like, Heller was okay, but Steve is fantastic. You're a loser, talking about me, but yeah. Steve was fantastic. And so we're going to have you back again sometime over the next month, or as soon as possible. I shouldn't commit to us. I got to look at the schedule because you have some very important things to discuss. People want to get into your wheelhouse, and if it's not with you, understand the process of working their way in so that they can be working with you and or whoever doing this sort of thing. So we need to have you back, so we will definitely do that. Right now the stream looks to be running excellent. So can you give us a summary? If I want to contact you, and what do I need to do for you to actually pay attention to me? Because
I would say submissions at aethonbooks.com is a good place to start. Aethon is spelled Aethon, aethonbooks.com.
I've got that up on the screen, I believe.
There you go. Submissions at aethonbooks.com is our email address for author submissions, but we also kind of tell our narrators, go ahead and send us your stuff there. Obviously aethonbooks.com. You could find me on social media. I'll be honest, probably like anybody, I get so many Facebook requests and my account is private. So if I see that you've got a bunch of folks that are like common and whatever, I'll sometimes take those. But you could always join our Discord, which I actually don't know how to tell you to do. There's links though everywhere. There's links on our website. There's links on our Facebook. Join the Aethon Facebook group page. If you join our Discord and start getting involved there, that's a decent way to kind of. I hate talking like this because it's not like we're better than you. You're trying to get our attention or anything like that. There's just a lot of people, right? Like, how many people are in your groups? Like 25,000 narrators.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track of all of it.
Right. Well, here's what's gonna happen for Steve, because the same thing happens for me and Johnny. People will be pissed off at me accidentally because they sent me something. And I see it. I might be on my phone. I'm not at home. And I think, okay, I got to get back to that gentleman or that lady. And then by the time I get home, I'll have another 15 messages. Yeah. And it's scrolled far enough. And I try to go back. And then, but it's an ongoing thing. And you are going to have that in spades. So here's one thing. If you give up because you tried to contact Steve or Johnny one time and they didn't respond, then that's on you. I'm sorry, but they've got so many people yapping at them all the time, and they don't intend to be rude. Johnny maybe, but they don't intend to be rude. It's called the queues are big, and you try to get back to them. And there are some days where I'm sure you cannot get. Well, I'm gonna guess you cannot get back to everybody who's contacted you on certain days. Is that close?
No, I get 4,000 to 6,000 Facebook messages a week. That's what my app tells me. 4,000 to 6,000 a week. That's not including Discord. That's not including emails. That's not including any of those other areas. We get about 1,000 submissions a week. I've got 280 authors that have a direct line to me and Rhett.
Okay.
Aethon is so small in terms of it's just me and Rhett running things, and then we've got a guy named Josh. We've got a guy named Kevin. We've got some other folks you could see. but it's just me and Red answering all of it.
Right. So in other words, I should just get
Immediately.
pissed off when you don't
Get
call me
pissed
back.
off.
You
Yeah.
know, I deserve that. So, so, the summary is this: these guys are busy, but they've got a tiger by the tail. If you want to participate, then you and I are going to have to do a bunch of right things to put ourselves in a position where they will notice us and pay attention to us. Is that at all accurate, Steve?
Yeah, and if you know one of our narrators, right,
Uh-huh.
you could figure out who our narrators are. A good way to get our attention is like if they're willing to say, "Hey, I've got somebody that I think is really great." Those go a long way.
Right.
I'm not asking you to bug Johnny Heller. I'm not asking you to bug your narrator friends. But if you are close with somebody, and just tell them, "Hey, could you let Aethon know that I exist?"
Right. Right. Well, okay, that's a generalization in life that we've been harping on forever. This business runs on relationships. And if you aren't into that or building communities, then in a sense, you're going to have a tougher time than those who build it. And sometimes it's not fair that I get access to somebody and Johnny knows somebody. I mean, it's just not fair. But I've been doing this. I've been admin groups for 10 years. So yes, my 25,000 in my little network there, I don't know most of them. I can't remember some of them. But then I'll go back. I had a guy today. I realized we've chatted 5 years ago.
Yeah.
We had a long conversation. I don't remember him but now, okay, I see. So we're going to do this again in a couple of weeks, or as soon as possible. I'll talk with you offline and do this because there's enough interest in doing that. Will you come back?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm putting him on the spot.
Excellent.
Okay.
I
Johnny?
really appreciate
No,
you.
never.
See, offline, I'll get the truth about it. But Johnny, anything you need to mention here before we close up shop today?
We're doing we're going to New Orleans on May 6th for a few days, and then the New England Narrator Retreat is October 10th through 14th, I think it is, and that'll be on my website and on my Facebook pages fairly soon. We're going to open up. Tax time is over, so probably the next week or two, I'm going to fix the agenda. I'll see if Steve wants to join us, and we'll go from there.
Okay, and I want to. This is something interesting. Baldry lives in my town. I'll see if he has time for coffee at the bookshop. Laugh out loud. So Nick, here's what I'm going to say to that. One of the things that the people that have been in this business a long time, and I know you're just joking, okay, because you're a smart aleck like me, or you're trying to do. Anyway, one of the things that drives people crazy is when people want to do coffee with them to pick their brain when they don't already have some connections. Now, maybe Baldry will do it, but it just works out that the number of people contacting Heller to do coffee, and same with Steve. Hey, I'm going to be in town, Steve. Will you do coffee with me? Steve's like, no. I mean, unless you have
I try. It's hard. But even in Vegas, right? Everyone, when we go to Vegas once a year, everyone wants to. I'm like, I've only got 3 meals a day.
Right.
I can only do 3 meals a day.
Yes.
And my wife is here with me.
Right. Exactly. So there's a lot going on, and we'll have you back, and we will discuss how to build your portfolio so that you have a chance to be on the radar. I think that's the question that keeps coming up for people. And note, if I'm not willing to do my homework, I've got zero chance and for good reason. This guy has choices. Heller has choices. And because they have those choices, in order to get on their radar, I have to do enough to earn the right to have them pay attention to me. And there's some good ways to do that. And we really appreciate you being here, Steve. And
we will have you back. Thank you so very much.
We will have you back. And I apologize about the stream. I can't control everything. Right now, the connection's excellent. And I didn't do anything when it was really good. And I didn't do everything when it was really bad, although I did switch something to get it back at one point. But it's just nothing I can do on my end. So I appreciate you guys joining us. And as always, we look forward to seeing you on the wires. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. Be sure to pass this to your friends. And when you see it coming around again, please put a comment in that says, oh, it was so great last time. I want to see it again. That really helps us. Appreciate y'all. You have a great day. See you on the wires.
Thanks all. So long.
Bye-bye.
Now we hold our soap opera.